fear and misinformation. It's kind of pointed at, somebody accused me of working for OPEC the other day. I promise you, I don't work for anybody. I get advertising revenue off my videos, but I'd make more advertising revenue doing other subjects. This is because I believe that there are too many lies surrounding electric cars. I have an electric car myself. It's perfect for me. It may not be perfect to you, but they are telling you it is. So you go and buy it, you don't like it, you end up selling it quickly, full of buyer's remorse, losing a fortune, and you know, that's just adding to depreciation of electric vehicles. The last thing the motor trade needs is EVs depreciating like they are. It cannot stand it. The motor trade is imploding because they're trying to push too many EVs. And who have you got pushing them? People who have got nothing to do with it. Absolutely, they've got no skin in the game. They don't care whether you lose your job. They don't care whether you lose thousands of pounds. They're being paid to push an agenda. That means the target can be hit, not just from the sale of EVs, but also from the sale of large numbers of lower emission petrol and diesel cars. Now, why does he say large numbers when it's only 6%? It only accounts for 6%, but they've got to make 22% of EVs. So 22% EVs, but 6% is large numbers. Well, no, it's 6%, but it's not 6%, is it? Because they don't get the same credits as they do on an EV. So they have to sell large numbers. Does anybody else think that's kind of defeating the object? So in the first place, in order to hit their EV target, they have to sell large numbers of the cars they're trying to stop selling. I don't know how it comes up in my timeline, but it did. I don't follow the ECIU. But here we go. This tweet, or this X, whatever you want to call it, was December the 22nd, 2025. UK car industry is on course to meet the government's electric vehicle sales requirement this year, despite some manufacturers complaining it's too tough, according to new analysis. Now, that's kind of implying that it's not too tough. Trust me, it is. It's absolutely killing the motor trade. Killing it. Stone dead. Every aspect of it. People are going out of business right, left and centre. They just can't make money anymore in the motor trade. Because of the massive depreciation on EVs, it's also having an effect on ICE cars. At first I didn't realise, so I went into the article. And then, of course, the only thing I got from that was car industry set to meet the targets again this year. But this is from, they've republished it from a year ago, Monday the 23rd of December 2024. Car industry set to meet. Well, they didn't. Everybody knows they didn't meet it, but they're just ignoring how they managed to scramble through by buying carbon credits off Tesla and the Chinese, by pre-registering a load of low-emission ICE cars, hybrids. And you'll see the wording they use later on. They know very well that all this is bullshit. They're putting it out and they know it's bullshit. And they're implying that, oh yeah, the motor trades, they're moaning, but they hit it. Despite they hit it. Honestly. So, a think tank, this is the think tank, the Energy and Climate Information Unit, they're a think tank. Said this is because the zero-emission vehicle mandate takes into account credits from selling low-emission petrol and diesel cars. Not from selling low-emission, from selling lots. Because they don't count as one credit. So you've got to sell lots of them to make the other 6%, I think it is, that they're allowed to make up. The Climate Intelligence Unit put this out on their Twitter feed, again, 12 months later, and referring to 2024. The SMMT have a slightly different way of putting their point across. So this is December the 5th, 2025, a disquieting month for the UK's new car market. And don't forget, this is November. We're actually in December now, we're on the 23rd, but this is referring to November. November's new car data offers a reminder that the road to net zero is anything but straightforward. Overall registration slipped by 1.6%, reflecting not just a dip in private buyer enthusiasm. Should I tell you what it actually reflects? It reflects that they've had to hold petrol, the ones that people want to buy, petrol and diesels, they've had to hold them back and register EVs and, of course, the very low emission ICE vehicles and hybrids in order to get to the mandate and in order to make it look like EVs are selling. They've had to restrict the flow of new ICE cars, so much so that the market's down but EVs are going up. Does that not ring alarm bells for anybody else? The whole market's down 1.6%, but EVs are up to a percentage where they're just over where they need to be. I mean, what do you want me to do? Get a f***ing blackboard and, you know, who do I need to explain this to? It seems obvious to me. It's just a massive con, just like all the rest of these EV shills. They're just con men. They're just liars. They just make stuff up. I mean, this. The EV guy. Remember when dial-up internet was fine until broadband arrived? That's diesel in 2025. Loud, smelly, expensive to run, high maintenance, and suddenly feels very outdated once you've experienced the alternative. I've experienced the alternative and I'd rather have a diesel. Now, according to the EV people, that's not just because it's my choice, it's because I'm uneducated and I don't know. Nobody is banning nostalgia. You can still use it. It just doesn't make much sense anymore. The funny thing is, people still judge EV on one they were told about in 2012. Man's an idiot. You can't open a newspaper or go on social media without one of these shills telling you how fantastic EVs are. And like this. Yet we're still pretending diesel is modern. Progress doesn't ask for permission, it just happens. Right, okay. Doesn't ask for permission. Does it ask for a £3,750 grant? Do you remember when they had to discount broadband to less than it cost them to make, hold back the sale of dial-up to make it look like their sales percentage was higher than it was, pre-register broadband and hide it for 3 years to keep the residuals artificially high, get the government to make a mandate and fine the broadband manufacturers £12,000 for everyone they missed the target by, then give £2 billion of taxpayers' money away to make broadband even cheaper than dial-up, allow you to write 100% off against your profits and take payments out of your wages before tax to save you even more money. No, me neither. It took over because people wanted it and it was better. EVs aren't better. They are a compromise. They're better if they work for you. If they don't, they're not better. That's what these people don't understand. Until they get it through the thick heads that they only work for people who can charge at home. They're not cheaper than a diesel to run. They're not cheaper than a petrol to run. If you have to charge away from home, it's dearer than petrol. But no, they don't tell you that. They hide the truth. But a market grappling with a challenge economic backdrop, electrified vehicles dominated popular demand, making up more than half of all registrations for a third month. Well, I'm sorry, but are those the electric vehicles that have got a petrol or diesel engine too, that are mostly run on petrol and diesel engines, and the charging lead is still in cellophane in the back of the vehicle? Do you mean those electric vehicles? This is the SMMT. Do you know, I mean, I can't believe them, honestly. These are the people that are supposed to be sticking up for the motor trade and the motor trade manufacturers. Why do they come out with this absolute shit? Well, 1 in 4 buyers went zero emission. Right, so those are the actual electric cars. Despite this, ZEV demand rose just 3.6%, the slowest growth in almost 2 years, which, coming ahead of new autumn budget taxes on electric cars, should be seen as a wake-up call that sustained growth is far from guaranteed. Sustained growth not only is far from guaranteed, they're going to miss this target by, well, millions in pounds in fines. They're just not going to hit it. At this moment in time, they're using every trick in the book to try and get somewhere near. But they're not getting anywhere near, really, because, let me go on. Other measures will help. Additional money for the electric car grant, an uplift in the VED expensive car supplement threshold, more funding for infrastructure rollout, but their impact will be neutered by plans to introduce a pence per mile electric vehicle excise duty, even if it will be from 2028. At such a delicate time in the market's transition, this sends the wrong signal to consumers, putting ambitions in doubt and undermining the vast sums invested by the industry and government. The UK is moving faster than any other market to get zero emission mobility, and such rapid transition requires policies which incentivise, not penalise. Drivers trying to do the right thing. The right thing, with mandated targets ratcheting up steeply, we urge government to do everything in its power to keep the transition on track. Support a healthy market. It's not a healthy market. It's the most unhealthy market I can remember. And safeguard the UK's investment appeal. Honestly, absolute rubbish. They have used every trick in the book to get to this level where it don't cost them £12,000 per EV short they missed the target. As far as I'm concerned, the king of misinformation, the ECIU and Colin Walker. Car industry on course to meet EV sales targets in 2025 analysis. 22nd December 2025. New analysis finds that the UK car industry is on course to hit zero emission vehicles, ZEV mandates, 28% target for 2025. The analysis comes amid calls in some quarters for the UK to follow the European Commission's recent decision to weaken its EV sales target by weakening its own. In designing the ZEV mandate, the previous government included a so-called flexibility that the car industry was in favour of. Anything, they would clutch at any straw because they knew they weren't going to do it on EVs and they had more chance of selling low-emission petrols or hybrids. That means the target can be hit not just from the sale of EVs, but also from the sale of large numbers of lower emission petrol and diesel cars. Now, why does he say large numbers when it's only 6%? It only accounts for 6%, but they've got to make 22% of EVs. So 22% EVs, but 6% is large numbers. Well, no, it's 6%, but it's not 6%, is it? Because they don't get the same credits as they do on an EV. So they have to sell large numbers. Does anybody else think that's kind of defeating the object? So in the first place, in order to hit their EV target, they have to sell large numbers of the cars they're trying to stop selling? The overall effect being to reduce tailpipe emissions. The current government has since extended this flexibility. Analysis of vehicle CO2 data from the Department for Transport and Vehicle Sales, data from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, SMMT, together with projections for vehicle sales in December based on previous year's sales trends. In December, EV sales spike because, again, I'm fed up of saying it, to be honest, but nobody registers cars in February, August or December, because February there's a new registration coming out in March, August new registration coming out in September, December there's a new year coming, and the amount of vehicles that get registered on New Year's Eve, which I call New Year's EVs, is just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And one of the EV yappers said last year, well, we'll see whether they were pre-registered. And then in January, it went very quiet in January because there was a load of vehicles that were advertised that were registered on New Year's Eve. So even the EV shows, they don't know what's going on, and they make themselves look stupid by saying something that anybody in the motor trade knows is rubbish. Like the Climate Intelligence Unit, anybody in the motor trade knows they're talking rubbish. Unfortunately, you people out there, there's a saying in the motor trade that 99% of people who aren't in the motor trade don't know they aren't in the motor trade. We used to get them all, well, yeah, I used to be in the game. Years ago, I used to be in the game. If it was a game to you, it's a good job you got out, because it's been my livelihood. It's not a game to me. It's not a game now. And if it was a game now, what's that game where is it Squid Game? That's what the ZEV mandate's based on. You don't do your target, you're dead. Your garage dies, all your staff have to find new jobs. Everything that you hold dear, probably you've got your house as collateral for your overdraft or your garage, and then you lose your income too. So after gambling all that, somebody, some idiot in government comes and tells you that you have to sell a certain amount of vehicles, otherwise they're going to fine you £12,000 for it. What's £15,000? Now it's only 12,000. I mean, it's only 12,000. What's £3,000 amongst friends? And I see, again, I always go on about Labour government, and I see they came out with this tax for farmers, and they're going to lighten that slightly. There's a few farmers killed themselves because this tax was coming in. How many garage owners will do it? When you get to 2030, it's just, honestly, it's just ridiculous. Based on previous year's sales trends, reveals that the car industry as a whole is on course to meet its targets under the ZEV mandate for the second year running. Earlier this year, the government confirmed that the 205 target had been achieved. Well, we know Suzuki didn't sell one EV, and they achieved the target. So it wasn't. It was clawed. There'll be car dealers' fingernails in the wall clawing up because they've borrowed from the future. You can mortgage your future. You can bet that you're going to sell more next year. But they've not done. You've only got 3 years to do that, and then you have to pay. So next year, this year's bad. Next year will be bad. Then it'll be Carmageddon. While the headline EV sales target for the year is 28%, our analysis has found that the flexibilities in the ZEV mandate lower the percentage of EVs that the industry as a whole actually needs to sell to 20.4%. The rest of the target can be made up through the sale of lower emission petrol and diesel cars. So far this year, January to November, more than 1 in 5 cars sold in the UK has been an EV, 22.7%. But the market's down, so that's 22% of a lower figure, which means nothing, meaning the industry is on track to exceed the overall ZEV mandate target for the second year running. Commenting on the analysis, Colin Walker, head of transport at the ECIU, said, despite claims that sales targets would not be hit, it seems clear that in 2025, just as last year, the industry is on track. British drivers are increasingly choosing to switch to electric, so much so that of the world's largest car markets, the UK is now second only to China in the proportion of drivers buying new EVs, be they new cars or regular families going electric on the second-hand market. Well, the second-hand market, that's not right. If you've seen any of my videos, it is just not normal buyer behaviour for one car to swap 5 times in a year. 3 to 5 year old EVs are up 55% according to Auto Trader. Yet they come off a lease at 3 years, they sell to somebody else for 4 weeks, then somebody else for 2 months, then somebody else for like 7 weeks, and so on, right the way throughout the year. It's no wonder it's up 55%, isn't it? You can make figures do whatever you want. Trust me, if I had their figures, I would show you a picture that wouldn't paint EVs in a very good light at all. All I'm trying to do is enlighten you. I'm not anti-EV, I'm anti the way people like this are conning you into spending your money and subsidising the EV market. British EV drivers are saving hundreds, even thousands of pounds a year. They're just not. They are just not. Legacy manufacturers dominate EV sales in the UK, with the likes of Ford, Renault and Mini recording significant sales increases, and Nissan beginning to drive the first of its brand new Leafs off its upgraded production lines in Sunderland. Were the UK government to follow the EU's lead and weaken its own ZEV mandate, it would risk slowing new EV sales and stunting the growth of the second-hand EV market, leaving people stuck driving dirtier and more expensive petrol cars for longer. Really, why would it? You think about what he's just said. Because these people would rather have a petrol or a diesel than an EV. That's it. They're not banning the sale of EVs. So why can't they compete on their own in a fair market? Because they're not as good. Because actually, EVs, as the EV guy said, they're considered dial-up. And it's not a step up from a petrol or a diesel to an EV. It's a compromise. They don't save hundreds or thousands of pounds a year. Dealers can't even make hundreds and thousands of pounds when they sell them. If they have them a year, they lose thousands. And I can show you the case. You download AT Price Tracker, go onto electric vehicles, look, go to recent, and then scroll down from recent. And as you go down, you'll see all the cars that have been in stock, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. You'll see how much those vehicles have been reduced. They have profit. They're professionals in selling EVs, and they're losing thousands a month. You cannot say that a private will save money, because they won't. They will not. Absolutely won't. When you take depreciation into account, they won't. Leases are getting more expensive now because the EV lease companies have been caught out with horrendous depreciation, have lost millions. Millions, 500 million I think, one of them, the profit swung by. 500 million. And it would have been more if their ICE vehicles that they disposed of hadn't brought more than they thought. It would have been more. This is the big risk now being faced by drivers in the EU. It's clear the world is only going in one direction on electric cars. So slipping into the slow lane is a recipe for getting left behind. It's a recipe for throwing a lifeline to the UK motor trade, because it will not survive the ZEV mandate. And the other thing it won't survive is us not watering down the ZEV mandate. What we should do is scrap it completely. And all that money they're throwing at EVs, they should make into a training school to make proper, perhaps not salesmen, make customer advisors. So that when a customer comes in, like in the old days, you qualify them, you find out what his wants and needs are, what his priorities are, what sort of driving he does, how many are in his family, did he have a dog, did he go on camping holidays, all the stuff that you need to help him make an informed decision. And if an electric vehicle suits his needs, right, Mr. Customer, come this way. Sit yourself in the driver's seat there. Let's go for a ride. Let me take you to a charger. Let me show you how easy this vehicle is to charge, how quickly it gets from 20 to 80% of a charge, which really is probably all you will need. And not only that, most of the time, you won't even need to come to a charger like this. You come home from work, go up your drive, get your charger out, plug it in, you come out to it in the morning, fully charged at 7p per kilowatt hour. How many miles do you do during a week? How many miles do you think you'd be able to do just from charging at home? How many long trips do you do where you would have to be inconvenienced by going to perhaps a motorway charger? If I can show you that you'll save money, would that make up for the inconvenience twice a year? That's how you should sell them. No, throw money. You don't want it. Here's 3,700. You don't want it. Well, I'll knock you some money off your tax. You don't want it. Benefit in kind's cheaper. Salary sacrifice. Depreciation. Loads of discount. You can get 2 for 1 if you're leasing. That's how they sell them. They will never, ever sell them like that. Never. I've worked for mass market and I've worked for prestige market. Prestige market's better. Trust me, they've got it right. The Department of Transport, DFT, stated in April 2025 that the car industry as a whole achieved a compliance rate of 24.3% in 2024, above the 22% headline target for sales for the year. How many of those were EVs? Recent analysis by the ECIU has revealed the annual running costs savings enjoyed by EV drivers in the UK are 1.5 times or £540 higher than those enjoyed by EV drivers in Germany. A recent report by the CBI Economics commissioned by the ECU revealed that a failure by the car industry to make the transition to manufacturing EVs, commissioned by the ECIU, transition to manufacturing EVs could see its contributions to the UK economy fall by as much as 73%, could see. Worst case scenario, or 34.1 billion, and over 400,000 jobs could be lost. Conversely, economic output could increase by 16 billion and 167,000 new jobs could be created if a rapid and successful transition takes place. Government support is critical in avoiding such an outcome, and this includes provisions of a stable and supportive regulatory environment through keeping measures like the ZEV mandate in place. All that is absolute rubbish. It's tripe. So here's my ZEV mandate reality check. Let's be clear about what's actually going on with the ZEV mandate. Yes, on paper, the UK car industry is on course to hit the 2025 target, but that headline hides a much more uncomfortable truth. The industry isn't hitting the target because consumers are rushing to buy EVs. It's hitting it because the rules allow manufacturers to use flexibilities, sell huge volumes of petrol and diesel cars, and offset these sales against EV credits. Now also, let me show you a couple of things that Collins retweeted. He knows very well that hybrids aren't electric. He knows very well. That's not demand-led success. That's compliance engineering. When you strip the headline 28% target down using flexibilities, the real requirements fall to around 20%. And that's before you even talk about how it's being achieved. And how is it being achieved? Through heavy manufacturer discounts, margin destruction in the motor trade, tactical registrations, pre-reg dumping, and collapsing EV residuals. Used car supermarkets have pre-registered EVs with 10 miles on the clock. Those costs aren't absorbed by the industry. In some abstract sense, they land squarely on dealers' shoulders, finance houses, and the used car market. So when organisations like the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit say this proves the industry is not struggling, that depends entirely on how you define struggling. If struggling means failing to tick a regulatory box, then fine, it's coping. But if struggling means losing money, destroying residual values, forcing dealers into unsustainable discounting and hollowing out the motor trade, then the industry is absolutely struggling, and badly. Meeting a target by bending every rule available and burning capital along the way is not a success story, it's a warning sign. This isn't an argument against EVs, it's an argument against pretending that compliance to the targets, the ZEV mandate, equals health, because the market might be on course, but the motor trade is paying the price. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.